being part of the Bidders Conference. We're really excited about putting this request for funding proposal out. So this is something that we're required to do under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. So we just released that last Friday. So we're going to cover the guidelines and the application itself, and just kind of give you an overview of how we've got it set up on the website so it can help you navigate. And we'll cover each section of the guidelines and the application, okay? We're scheduled to go from 9:30 to 11:30, and I'll try to be very cognizant of time, and hopefully we'll be able to wrap up before then. We're going to be recording this. So we'll be putting it out on our website. And then for you all that can see the screen and that's logged into the webinar, you can actually, through the chat box feature, ask questions as well. And I'll try to address any questions at the end. We'll also let you unmute your phone. And if you have any questions you want to ask verbally, you can do that as well. We'll be putting those out under the frequently asked questions document that we have on the website as well. So everyone will get to see the questions that is asked, okay? So let's dive into the website itself. So the request for funding proposal, RFP, was released last Friday. This is a grant opportunity for the Adult Education and Family Literacy Act, AFLA, under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, and it specifically addresses Section 231 under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act law itself. And then we're also having a grant opportunity for what we classify as our Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education, Section 243 grant funds under WIA that is also referenced directly in the federal law. We are targeting certain counties for the IELCE grant. So if you are applying and you're from one of these specific counties, then we need you to address in the application how you're going to be providing integrated English literacy and civics education with these Section 243 funds. And those counties are Baldwin, DeKalb, Jefferson, Lee, Madison, Marshall, Mobile, Montgomery, Morgan, Shelby, and Tuscaloosa. So again, as a reminder, if you're writing and you're in one of these areas, you also need to address the questions around IELCE Section 243 specific funds, okay? And we'll get into this in a few minutes, but under Section 231, those funds can also be utilized for English as a second language, which now is referred to as English language learners. So those funds can also be utilized for the English literacy and civics education. But there are specific funds that the federal government has designated and wanted us to target certain areas to provide IELCE funding to. So that's why we have done that. All right, let's go down to eligible applicants. If you've provided adult education services before, obviously you know the eligible applicants that can provide services in the state through Title II Adult Education and Family Literacy Act. If you have never provided funding before, but you're interested in it, here's the entities that can actually provide services under that. And it's entities that are considered a 501c3, such as a local educational agency, a community-based organization or faith-based organization, a volunteer literacy organization, an institution of higher education, a public or private nonprofit agency, a library, for example, a public housing authority, a nonprofit institution not described in A through G specifically in the law, but has the ability to provide adult ed and literacy activities to eligible individuals. You also have a consortium or coalition of agencies, organizations, institutions, libraries, etc., that can come together to form a group that can apply for the funds. And then the partnership between an employer and an entity described in A through I of the section I just read to you are also eligible as well. So that gives you the eligible applicants itself. Let's scroll down to the timeline. We put together a timeline that we want to make sure that everybody is fully aware of. Obviously, we posted and released the application and the RFP guidelines on February 16th. The Bidders Conference obviously is going on today, which we will record and you can listen to later as well. As a reminder, the Bidders Conference is not a requirement to apply for adult education funds. It's just a courtesy that we provide to entities that may have never applied for funds before to just cover the entire process. But it is not a requirement to actually apply for funds. The deadline, and this is the critical one, for the grant proposals due to us is April the 2nd, okay? So you have quite some time to actually get the grant written and back to us. And then from there, we will take care of the rest of the timeline, which is basically reviewing the applications, making sure that the local workforce investment boards review the application. So we'll make sure that they have a copy of it because they will check from the standpoint of alignment with the goals of the local workforce plans. And then obviously we'll have a review committee that will review each proposal and make determinations for funding for those proposals if all the criteria has been met and the proposal is acceptable within the range that has been instituted to them from the standpoint of the matrix that's created for the scoring. We will also conduct final review from the system office here from May 4th through the 18th and make determinations for awarding funds. And then an official letter of award notification will go out to applicants on May the 18th, notifying you of if you're a successful applicant or not. And then the WIOA grant contract period, which is the grant period that you're writing for, begins on July the 1st of 2018. I'll go into a little more specifics on the grant period in a few minutes. It is a 3-year grant, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. Scroll down, you'll see the Bidders Webinar, which is occurring right now. We also have a letter of intent to apply. I want to make sure that you're aware of that. We would like you to submit to us a letter of intent to apply, which is due February 26th, which is next week, Monday. So let us know whether or not you're going to be applying for the grant. You're not required to do this. We're just asking you to do this from the standpoint it will allow us to be ready for the applications that we will be receiving and ensure that we get those to the appropriate local workforce boards in a timely manner, and then also make sure that we have the readers in place to read all the applications that we will be getting in. So again, it is not a requirement, but it is something we would like you to do to let us know that you will be applying. And then we also have preparing and submitting the application itself to us. We want an electronic copy, and then we also want 2 paper copies just to be consistent with what the federal government requires, and the signatures will need to be in blue ink addressed to the Adult Education Division, attention, David Walters, State Director. You can deliver these proposals, and they will be accepted up through 4 o'clock on the 2nd, okay? The proposal format, I'm sure you have already reviewed this, but it is a 12-point font, single-spaced, 1-inch margins. The signature must include original signatures of the lead organization or physical agent. We don't want any handwritten proposals. They will not be accepted. And then incomplete proposal packages will not be considered either. So you need to make sure that everything in the packet has been submitted. I will cover everything in the guidelines in the packet in just a few minutes, okay? And then we've got the quick link. So if you go up to the very top and on the right-hand side, we have put together the quick link features that will actually help you and assist you in writing the request for funding proposal. So everything you need is on the right-hand side. Now, there's other things that you may want to put in your proposal that is not part of what we have provided to you. That is okay to do. You can use other resources, local resources, other national, federal, state level resources that's not part of the quick links. You can do that. Just make sure you cite the information that you put in there, where you got it from. But again, we have provided with you everything that you will need to do to actually write the grant itself, okay? We also, any questions that you have, please submit those questions by email to Danielle Smith, and she will compile all of the questions that you have, and then we'll put that into our frequently asked questions document that will be under quick links on the right-hand side. Okay. All right. So I've covered what's on the website itself. So let's dive into the guidelines and general instructions. So now we're going to click on the right-hand side. So for Gwen, you and Joyce and others that may not be able to see and follow along with us, on the right-hand side of the website, click on Guidelines and General Instructions. All right, so this is the guidelines and general instructions themselves. We have put this together as a separate document to help you in writing the application itself. So please read through all the guidelines and general instructions first before diving into the application. Also look at all the attached information that we put under quick links as well to help you get prepared for the application itself. So if we scroll down, we've already covered the due date on the application. We put that there again as a reminder. The webinar obviously is occurring now, so we have that listed. And then just as a reference in red at the very bottom, we just want to make sure that everyone knows we do not discriminate on the basis of race, sex, color, national origin, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, political affiliation, or against otherwise qualified persons with disabilities. Policy permits appropriate employment preferences for veterans and specifically prohibits discrimination against veterans. We also have a new section that I will address in a few minutes that is required by the U.S. Department of Education called the General Education Provisions Act, GEPA, and that is at the end of the application itself, that each entity that is applying for funds must address GEPA, which is the General Education Provisions Act, which is basically non-discrimination act, and you'll have to. We've got examples of what that will look like and what the feds are looking for in that. So that is a requirement of the grant. So we have worked that into the grant process. All right. Let's cover introduction real quick. Obviously, adult education falls under the Alabama Community College system here in the state of Alabama under the workforce division, so adult education and workforce division. Obviously, our goal is to select eligible providers to develop, implement, and improve adult education literacy activities within our state by establishing and operating programs that provide a comprehensive service model for adult ed and literacy services, including programs that provide such activities concurrently. This funding is made available through the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Title II, Adult Education Family Literacy Act, Public Law 113-121, and again, that is under the quick links. We actually have the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act there as part of the quick link, so you can reference everything I'm mentioning in the law itself, okay? Again, the grant opportunities are going to be for the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, the AFLA funds, Section 231, and then the IELCE funds, Section 243 that I addressed just a few minutes ago, specific to the counties bolded in black, okay? Eligible applicants, I think I've already read that to you. Again, we wanted to make sure that we have that listed. That is part of the federal requirement. So you have all the eligible applicants listed. As required by WLA, funding is prioritized for the following: organizations who have demonstrated effectiveness. This is a key measure that you will see in the application itself, as there is a section that discusses demonstrated effectiveness. So you need to make sure that you're able to prove demonstrated effectiveness in improving the literacy of eligible individuals, especially with respect to eligible individuals who have low levels of literacy. And organizations whose services are aligned with local workforce strategies, priorities, and partners, and organizations whose services are responsive to the needs of persons with barriers to employment. Okay. Additionally, we have a risk assessment will be completed by the adult ed entity that's applying for the funds. So this is something that you'll need to complete as well. We have a copy of what that looks like in the guidelines, and then we have the risk assessment that you will be completing as part of your application process in the application itself. So this is a pre-award risk assessment that is something that was required for all states to do for when they put out a request for funding proposal. So this is not something that the state of Alabama developed specifically for our state, but it's something that the feds, the federal government, required us to put into our application. Okay. All right. It's again highly recommended to review the following information prior to the proposal. I think I've already covered that, but make sure that you read these guidelines, the general instructions that I'm going to cover for you. Also, the Adult Ed Procedure Manual, which is attached under the quick links. Make sure that you look at that manual. We have a lot of information in that manual that describes what it is that an adult education provider needs to do in the state of Alabama for adult education and to be an adult ed provider in the state, and all of the guidelines requirements that follow. We also have the Alabama State Plan, which is also under quick links that will give you an idea of the state plan that was submitted by the state of Alabama, which includes all of the partners that's under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which includes Title I, Title III, and Title IV, plus other required partners in the Act itself. And I will address those partners in a few minutes in a little more detail. You also have the Local Workforce Development Board Plan, or we had also called it the Local Workforce Investment Board Plan. But this is the local plans. We have a map that shows all of the 7 local areas. And then we have links directly to the local workforce development board plans. You do not have to contact the boards to get their local plan. We have put all that on our website for you. So as you are writing your proposal, you will have a copy of the local workforce development plan within the county that you are applying for funds. If you are applying for funds in multiple counties, please be aware that you may have different workforce development board plans that you will need to read and align to, okay? There are some areas that you may cross local workforce development boards. So just please be aware of that. And we do have a map that is attached that will show you the areas and all the counties within that area. We also have Alabama labor market information, a direct link to that, which provides you information on labor market for your specific area that you will be applying for. So please utilize those labor market tools to help you in writing your proposal and identifying the need and how you're going to effectively meet the need within your area, aligned to the goals of business and industry within that local area. And then there's other state and federal documents and resources that are under the quick links that you can utilize, and then there's other information that you may be able to utilize that are not under quick links but could help support you in writing this proposal. So please feel free to utilize that. Here's another copy of the timeline. I will not cover that since I've already covered that. I've also covered the proposal submission requirements, so I won't go into that again. And also the proposal format. This is just a reminder of the format and then the grant period. Let me park here for a moment under the grant period. This is a 3-year grant that we are allowing you all to write for, okay? So it's a 3-year proposal. It will be effective July the 1st of 2018, okay? We will have basically July the 1st of 2018 running up through September of 2019, which is 15 months, but we will have a 3-month contract, July the 1st, 2018 to September 30th of 2018, 3-month, and then we'll go into a 12-month after that, okay? But you're writing for 3 years, okay? But because of our current year that we're in right now, and because that our state fiscal year is different than the federal program year, we are going to have a 3-month contract. We are going to do it in a way that if you're an existing provider and you are refunded beginning July the 1st, we'll make it as seamless as possible for you. And then for new providers beginning July the 1st, it will be as seamless as well. But we do have to go through a closeout period. And again, these funds do not carry over. So the funds that's allocated from July the 1st, 2018 up through September 30th of 2018 does not carry over, and then you will get a new grant 12-month to put us back on the state funding cycle, which will begin October 1st of 2018 up through September 30th of 2019, okay? And then each year of the 3-year period will be contingent upon performance. So each year it's going to be incumbent that you have good performance in order to continue. You're just not automatically continued for 3 years. Just want to make that clear. Thank you. All right, this is a copy of the local workforce development boards that I was referring to earlier. So this gives you an idea of how the state was divided up under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act for the local workforce development boards. Again, we are a partner under WLA. We are needing to align our grants to the local workforce boards, but as a reminder, the local workforce boards do not determine funding for adult education, nor do they operate adult education Title II, okay? They only operate Title I funds, but under the law, we are required to ensure that our applications align with those local board goals. And the local board will be reviewing the application for alignment only. They will not be reviewing the application from the standpoint of whether or not it will be funded. All they are doing is making sure that it's aligned to the goals of the local workforce board. So I just want to make that clear for everyone on the call today that's applying for funds. We also have a direct link here from the guideline application that you can click on one of these blue hyperlinks and go to the specific area that you will be applying for funds for. This is also, again, as a reminder, under the quick links, and you can go to it that way as well. We've just provided an easier way that if you're in the guidelines itself, you can click on any one of those and go into that, okay? Let's now discuss the estimated available funds, okay? The funds available, obviously, are under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Title II, Section 231, and then also 243 funds. We utilize the American Community Survey, which shows the number of citizens needing literacy services in each county. The American Community Survey is also utilized by the federal government to fund states. So we use the same process to determine funding for each eligible provider. In the application itself, you will see a per person rate that we will give you that will help you develop your budget. And then we also provide a list that I'll cover in a few minutes of all the counties and the population in need in each of those counties, okay? Again, direct and equitable access. All applicants will receive direct and equitable access required by WLA Section 231, and the competitive grant process ensures that all eligible providers will have direct equitable access to apply and compete for grants. Same grant announcement proposal processes are used for all eligible applicants in the state. And in awarding grants under this section, all applicants must consider the 13 considerations identified in the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Title II, Section 231E, specifically for the 13 considerations. The application itself is built around the 13 considerations, and I will cover that in a few minutes and get into that as soon as we finish the guidelines. Again, we have allowable use of funds, which 231 funds are for adult education and literacy activities, English language acquisition activities, which I mentioned earlier, which is allowed under 231 funds. You also have family literacy activities that are allowable, workforce preparation activities, workplace adult education and literacy activities, integrated English literacy and civics education, and integrated education and training. We have defined all of these for you in the next few pages, so we will go into some of that in the next couple of minutes. So as a reminder, these are the specific activities that we want you to gear your 231 funds for. And then according to Title II, Section 241 funds may be available for adult ed and literacy activities under Title II. They must supplement, not supplant, other state or local public funds expended for adult ed and literacy activities. And again, many of you probably are aware, but supplement, not supplant, means the federal funds are intended to augment or increase, not replace monies that would have been used if the federal funds had not been available. That is something I just want to make sure everybody's clear of. That's a pertinent part of this application process. Local administrative cost limits. Administrative costs are those non-instructional costs that are considered reasonable, necessary, and allowable costs associated with overall project management, not less than 95%, so be expended for carrying out the adult ed and literacy activities, and the remaining amount not to exceed 5% shall be used for planning, administration, professional development, and interagency coordination administrative costs. Okay. All right. To follow that, in cases where the cost limits described are too restrictive, there is the ability that you can ask for an increase in the administrative cost, but that is something that you can ask for. But we also have state dollars that you can utilize to assist with that administrative cost as well, which is 5%. Local administrative cost, specifically in red, I just want to highlight that again. Planning, administration, of including carrying out performance accountability requirements, professional development, providing adult ed and literacy services in alignment with local workforce plans, including promoting co-enrollment in programs and activities under Title I as appropriate, and carrying out the one-stop partner responsibilities described specifically in Section 678.420, including contributing to the infrastructure costs of the one-stop system. Okay. Program personnel guidelines, we have listed those out for you. I'm not going to address each one of these, but these are covered in the next 3 to 4 pages. We have our adult education program director and all the requirements. Please make sure you're aware of all the requirements under each position and the minimum requirements for each position. And then we have the adult ed instructor, all the requirements of an adult ed instructor, including the minimum requirements. We have instructional support staff also listed as well, and then non-instructional staff. So that is all listed for you. That is also detailed in our policy and procedure manual, which is also under quick links, so please reference that as well. Reservation of rights, adult education division under the Alabama Community College System reserves the right to reject any or all proposals for failure to submit the requirement listed in the proposal instructions. Receipt of proposals by Adult Education Division under the Alabama Community College System confers no rights upon the applicant nor obligates the system in any manner. Adult Education also reserves the right to reject any and all proposals, negotiate portions of a proposal, and negotiate a grant award based upon proposed student contact hours, level completions, project outcomes, and overall proposal responses. Just because you come up with a budget and an amount that you're requesting doesn't mean that you will receive that amount. That amount may be negotiated from this office to you based on the population and need within that county, and then other state and federal requirements and state and federal funding that we are getting. Also, as a reminder, even though this is a 3-year proposal and you may be funded each year is contingent upon federal and state funding that we receive. If we are cut any at all, then that may impact the amount of funding that you receive from us to provide adult education and family literacy services. Okay? All right. So we finished that paragraph up. All award decisions are final. Applications that do not meet the qualifications may reapply for future grant opportunities in the future. Just because you were not funded during this cycle doesn't mean that when we do a request for funding proposal again that you can never apply. You can always be eligible to apply if you meet the criteria that I described earlier when we first started the bidders conference. Again, AE is required by federal law to provide an opportunity for a hearing for applicants that are not approved for funding. The applicant must request a hearing in writing within 30 days of the disapproval action, no later than 10 days after the hearing. CCS, Adult Ed will issue its written ruling, including findings of fact and reasons for the ruling. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that process. And again, for questions that you may have, please contact Danielle, and she will put that together for the frequently asked questions document we put out on our website for anyone who is wanting to apply to read. All of this will be public knowledge for anyone who's eligible to apply. Again, general information. Let me go through some of this quickly, but the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act was created to provide state and local areas the flexibility to collaborate across systems. So it's really imperative that you are partnering with your local workforce boards and other core partners and required partners under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act in an effort to better address employment and skill needs of current employees, job seekers, and employers, which I want to make sure that I highlight employers as well. Obviously, one of our customer base is not only students and clients coming through the career centers, but also employers out there. So the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act accomplishes this by prescribing a stronger alignment of the workforce, education, economic development systems, and improving the structure and delivery in the system to assist America's workers in achieving a family-sustaining wage while providing America's employers with the skilled workers they need to compete on a global level. Okay? Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, again, this is just some information for folks that may not be fully aware of the Act. It replaces the 1998 Workforce Investment Act, and it represents a renewed commitment to workforce development in the nation and in each state. It focuses on prosperity of workers and businesses and economic growth of communities within our state. And it requires us to create a single strategic plan for training and skill development, employment services, adult education, and vocational rehabilitation. And again, Alabama's strategic plan, which is the Alabama State Plan, is listed under the on the right-hand side under quick links. So please take a look at the Alabama Strategic Plan or State Plan as we had it listed under the quick links, but it lays out the strategic goal of the state of Alabama and all the partners under the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act. So the combined plan partners that help make up the combined plan and the state plan, strategic plan, if you will, is the adult program through Title I, the dislocated worker program from Title I, youth program from Title I, adult education and family literacy program, Title II, That's us. That's what you're writing for today. Wagner-Pizer Act program, which is considered Title III, and then vocational rehabilitation services, which is considered Title IV. In addition, Alabama, we actually had additional partners that were part of the overall plan, and in our state, that was Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF, which is Alabama Department of Human Resources. We also have Unemployment Insurance, that was part of it, Trade Adjustment Assistance Act, TAA, Jobs for Veterans State Grant Programs, and Senior Community Service Employment Program, CSEP, as well as other strategic partners as identified in the Alabama Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act State Plan, which is under your quick links. Okay, and we also put a link to the Alabama Works website, which has a lot of great information, including a copy of the state plan that you can reference as well. But again, we provided you a direct link under quick links to the Alabama State Plan. The purpose of Adult Ed and Literacy Grant Program, again, is to enable eligible providers that receive grants under the program to create local partnerships to provide adult ed and literacy activities, including adult basic education, adult secondary education, and English language acquisition in order to assist adults to become literate and obtain the knowledge and skills necessary for employment and economic self-sufficiency, assist adults who are parents or family members to obtain the education and skills that are necessary in becoming full partners in the educational development of their children, and lead to sustainable improvements in the economic opportunities for their families. Assist adults in attaining a secondary school diploma, education, or its equivalent, and in the transition to post-secondary education training, including through career pathways, and assist immigrants and other individuals who are English language learners in improving their reading, writing, speaking, and comprehension skills in English and mathematics skills, acquiring an understanding of the American system of government, individual freedom, and the responsibilities of citizenship, and or provide educational programs for criminal offenders in correctional institutions and for other institutionalized individuals who are likely to leave the correctional facility within 5 years of participation in the program, including academic programs for adult education, literacy activities, special education, secondary school credit, integrated education, training, career pathways, concurrent enrollment, peer tutoring, and transition to reentry initiatives and other post-release services with the goal of reducing recidivism, and provide integrated English literacy and civics education programs, Section 243 that I described earlier, to prepare those adults who are English language learners for and place such adults in unsubsidized employment in the in-demand industries and occupations that lead to economic self-sufficiency, and to integrate with the local workforce development system and its functions to carry out the activities of the program. So here's the individuals that's eligible for our services. From the federal law itself, it's individuals who have attained 16 years of age and are not enrolled or required to be enrolled in secondary school under state law, which I want to pause there for a moment, please. In the state of Alabama, someone cannot officially drop out of school until they're 17. There are circumstances that they do end up dropping out, but technically it's age 17 in the state of Alabama. So we can work with somebody under that age if the school has officially allowed them to drop out, and we have an exit interview where the school's saying they are no longer required to be enrolled in school. And that may be because they are in the court systems, or they are part of a juvenile detention center or correctional facility. But again, there's processes that lay out specifically in the Adult Education Policy Manual and Handbook about the requirements for anyone 16 and 17 years of age in Alabama. But technically, state law says they're supposed to be enrolled and cannot officially drop out until 17. Just want to remind everyone of that. They must also lack sufficient mastery of basic educational skills to enable the individuals to function in society. This means someone could have a high school diploma or GED, but lacks the mastery of those basic educational and academic skills that prohibits them from being successful at attaining a job, keeping a job, or just functioning again in society. Do not have a secondary school diploma or its recognized equivalent. They're automatically eligible for our services within the age range, and then are English language learners, or as we formerly called English as a second language, and then also is referred to federally as English language acquisition students. Okay, program services and activities. Again, I have covered this, but we reiterated it again, specifically the adult ed literacy services, English language services. Okay, someone put us on hold. When you put someone on hold, it starts music playing, so please do not put us on hold. Please take it off hold. Thank you. It disturbs everyone else from hearing the conversation. We have specifically defined each area. Again, you cannot put this on hold. You can mute your phone, but do not put it on hold because music will begin playing. Okay, thank you again. You will see adult basic education is specifically defined. Adult secondary education is specifically defined. I'm not going to go into each one of those. You can read them yourself. We've also defined English language acquisition students, which is, again, English language learners or English as a second language students. We've also defined family literacy for you. And then we've also put in the special rule for family literacy specifically. So be sure that if you do any type of family literacy activities that you read everything that is outlined under our policy and handbook and within this document itself about family literacy. Integrated education and training, again, IET is a program designed to provide adult ed and literacy workforce preparation, workforce training, each of sufficient intensity and quality, and based on the most rigorous research available, especially with respect to improving reading, writing, mathematics, and English proficiency of eligible individuals that occurs, again, concurrently using occupational relevant contextualized instructional materials and are organized to function cooperatively with a single set of learning outcomes for the purpose of educational and career advancement. I specifically read that one to you and everyone on the phone because, again, IETs is something that you will see throughout the application and throughout the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. So I wanted to make sure everybody's aware of the importance of integrated education and training to be integrated into our services. You'll also see the integrated English literacy and civics definition there, the workplace adult ed and literacy activities definition, workforce preparation activities or necessary skills, soft skills, we also call that. These are the skills that employers are asking for. Career centers are wanting us to assist in preparing students for and clients for, and obviously employers are wanting these skills definitely for their employees to have. This is something we ought to integrate into everything we do in adult education. We also have institutionalized education and training is important. We have an institutionalized population or a correctional education population that is very important to us in the state of Alabama. You can utilize your 231 funds to also provide services to that population. And again, the term correctional institution is defined as any prison, jail, reformatory, work farm, detention center, or halfway house, community-based rehabilitation center, or any other similar institution designed for the confinement or rehabilitation of criminal offenders. Okay, that's for correctional institutions. Local institutions classes must have the support of the warden and other administrative officers and have the following available: at least 6 hours of classroom instruction, at least that. You really will be looking at probably much more than that, but at a minimum, And then we also have the instructional time for the correctional facility. Must dedicate adequate space conducive to learning. And then inmates or students should have access to instructional material for additional study outside of the classroom setting to make sure that you take advantage of the opportunity that you have with that captive population. All right, IELCE, we had mentioned this earlier. This gives you more information on the integrated English literacy and civics education. Again, this is specifically for those programs that were listed and bolded at the beginning of our conversation today when I talked to you about the ones that are eligible to write for Section 243. This will give you more information on Section 243 funds. And then we also have, you can scroll down and see the educational standards and policies. Please refer back to our policy manual for more information on the college and career readiness standards. And we also have a link that will take you to more information on college and career readiness standards, which are the standards that we have adopted in the state of Alabama to follow for adult education literacy activities. The assessment policy itself, we have that detailed out in the policy manual and handbook, and then we also have portions of it here for you to look at as far as the assessments, approved assessment instruments that we utilize in adult ed for our English as a second language population and for our adult basic education population. That is the TABE 9 and 10 for adult basic education population, and the TABE 11 and 12, which has recently been approved by the U.S. Department of Education, which will be rolled out and is specifically addressed within our policy procedure handbook. We also, professional development is very important to the state of Alabama. We provide professional development opportunities throughout the year, and then through meetings, conferences, webinars, through links, which is provided to us from the federal government, which is the Literacy Institute Network Consortium, and then also through local professional development that each provider is required to offer their adult ed instructors and staff. Performance standards, again, fall under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, performance accountability measures, and it applies across all core programs. And each local program must meet or exceed the projected performance levels. We have this detailed out in Appendix C that we will briefly show you in just a minute, but it is attached to the guideline document. Measurable skill gain is a term that basically is a way to determine educational function level and whether you complete educational functional levels of students. And there's different ways to show that besides using approved assessments, pre-test and post-test. There's other ways from the standpoint of education and skills training to show that measurable skill gain. We have all that listed out for you and detailed, and then again, it is also in the assessment policy portion of our manual. The follow-up core measures, Danielle's going a little fast here, so let me just slow down for a moment. The follow-up core measures are very important to the state of Alabama and to all the local workforce partners that we have throughout our state. So employment, second quarter after exit and fourth quarter after exit will be measured, and is very important to students that have completed our program, that they are transitioning into the workforce. So we'll be data matching with the Department of Commerce for those measures. We will also be coming up with the median earnings after quarter two, which is part of what will be occurring through the Department of Commerce, and the match Department of Commerce in our state will be collecting all of those measures and submitting those measures under the common performance measures of the Local Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act and the State Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. And then credential attainment rate, it spells that out, which is expressed as the percentage of participants who obtain a recognized post-secondary credential or secondary school diploma, or its recognized equivalent during participation in or within 1 year of exit from the program. All right. I also want to address the Alabama Adult Education System of Accountability and Performance. If you are a current provider, you know that system well. If you have never applied for adult education funding before, this will be new to you, but you will learn it very quickly if you are selected to receive funds from us. This is our state accountability system that captures all the information that we have to submit to the federal government. It's also a system that really allows you to use real-time data to make data-driven decisions for your program. So it's critical that you have all the information inputted into ASAP in a timely manner, and you will also be able to have all your financial information into the ASAP system as well. You'll be able to run reports. You'll be able to do detailed reports all the way down to student level data, and actually be able to provide students with information on their progress and how they're performing in the program. You'll be able to see daily attendance within that system because it is required to put in that programmatic information, along with all the financial information that is also required, and inventory as well. All grantees will be responsible for using ASAP as a data management system at the local level, and training for administrators and instructor support staff is required. The policy guidelines identify the key assessment policies aligned within the National Reporting System NRS levels for documenting achievement and support. Selection and use of appropriate assessment instruments is critical. Appropriate test administration, scoring, and reporting of those test scores are paramount, and then appropriate use of test results to inform instruction and improve programs is what you'll be doing to ensure that you're specifically targeting the areas that the student needs to work in to be successful, and then setting performance standards and reporting valid and reliable assessment results related to the information that we can utilize from the standpoint of ensuring that we're giving our policy makers all the information of the good work that we're doing in the state of Alabama, so we can continue to receive federal and state funding for adult education. You also have the record retention. I'm not specifically going to go into all this, but the federal retention period, again, is 3 years. It follows the guidelines of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act and the Uniform Grant Guidance document that's put out for all agencies under the U.S. Department of Education that receives federal funds. We also have information on there about local advisory committee, or many of you that are current providers, you may sit on the local workforce development board in your area. This will suffice as well, or you may have other advisory committee meetings, groups that you either organize or are part of within your area. If you're a new provider, you will be looking for committees where you can use as advisory committees for adult education, especially in the area that you are serving. I would recommend any of the nonprofit advisory committees that your organization may already be part of, or obviously the local workforce development board will be the most utilized one for that. Financial management, we have processes on the financial management of adult education. Again, adult ed is highly accountable, a performance-based system, and it is highly accountable from the financial fiscal management end as well. All grantees must be aware of that. You must be able to have a system in place where you can keep detailed, adequate financial fiscal records for expenditures, processing of all funds that you receive from Adult Education and Family Literacy Act under the Alabama Community College System and Adult Ed. Equipment, purchase, inventory, and disposal, there's a process for that is detailed in that policy and handbook manual, and has a section here that specifically gives you information on that process. Program monitoring and review is something that we do from the state office. It's a critical process of what we do and are required to do under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act under the U.S. Department of Education, and we follow those guidelines for our monitoring and review process. We've listed some of those here, which includes a corrective action plan, a program improvement plan or performance improvement plan, and then suggestions that we will provide continuously to you for continuous improvement. And we will do that through webinars, through direct contact with your workforce adult education specialists, and through other means that we have conferences and professional development and meetings with our local directors of adult education. The proposal review process is also listed there as well. And then we also have the local workforce development board review. I've kind of already covered that we'll be taking care of that for you. That's not part of the timeline. Once you get the application into us, we will then send that to the local workforce development board, and they have a time frame to get that back to us. We also have the proposal evaluation process that we will be conducting, and again, we just want to make sure that you fully are aware of that process. Initial considerations, and then again, we have listed adult literacy activities very specifically within this document. And the 13 considerations. I'm going to cover the 13 considerations when we get into the application, but we have them listed here in the guidelines itself. So you can look at each 13 consideration, and then again, we utilize the 13 considerations to build the questions for you in the application itself. So I'll be going into that in a few minutes in a little more detail. Again, we have integrated education training section that we have defined for you what that is, how it really incorporates career pathway visions and bridge programs to bridge people into training and into employment. And then the English language acquisition program, or English language learners, or English as a second language. It's all synonymous type of language that's used for that. So we have that listed as well. Demonstrate effectiveness. I think I went through that earlier, but it's very important, especially with respect to eligible individuals who are low-level literacy levels. And then, again, past effectiveness is something that we will be utilizing in this application process, and you will complete a form on past effectiveness. So if you're a current provider, and we'll cover that in a few minutes when we go through the application, we have listed for you where you will put in your data that demonstrate the effectiveness that you've had in doing adult education for the state program year, which will be July the 1st up through June 30th. Okay. For entities that have never provided adult ed services before, then we have guidelines that you will follow in determining how you will present to us, demonstrate effectiveness with the population that you have worked with that is similar to an adult education population, and the effectiveness in serving that population. So you will come up with your own charts and graphs to determine that effectiveness. Okay? All right, this is the pre-award risk assessment tool. This will give you an idea of what it looks like. That's Appendix A, okay? So it'll give you an idea of what that form looks like. This form is also embedded in the application itself, and that's where you're going to complete it. You're just looking at it in the guidelines, but you'll be utilizing the one that's in the application itself to complete. We also have Appendix B, which specifically gets into definitions of almost everything that we do in the field of adult education. So it mirrors what is in the policy handbook that we have listed for you, but we specifically put it in here as well. The GEPA is something that is new. I mentioned that earlier when I first got started. That's the General Education Provisions Act. That applies to applicants for new grants under the department programs. And then it requires applicants to address steps to applicant proposals to ensure equitable access to and participation in its federally assisted programs for students, teachers, and other program beneficiaries with special needs. Again, this is new. We worked it into the RFP process. It is something that we have to put into our state plan modification that we will be doing as well. And then you will see we have everything listed as far as definitions. Danielle, scroll back up just for a moment on page 36. For people new to adult education, there's some new terms I want to make sure that everybody's aware of. We have a participant, which is defined by the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act as an individual participating in an adult ed program who has achieved 12 contact hours after program entry, is reported on the national reporting system and statewide performance report tables, and is counted toward performance measures. We also have a new category for programs that are used to doing adult ed. They're probably aware of this, but it's still a relative new term. It's called period of participation. It's a period of participation begins each time an individual enters adult ed and gets at least 12 hours of service, even if there are multiple entries during the same program year. A participant may have multiple periods of participation in a year. Performance is measured for each period. These periods must be separated by 90 days without program attendance. We will manage that from the ASAT data system for you. You just need to be aware of the definition of periods of participation, but we've designed the system where it will automatically capture that information for us that we need to submit into the federal government. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And then the other new one here is reportable individual as defined by the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, and it is an individual who registers with an adult ed education program or provides identifying information, takes action that demonstrates an intent to use program services, but has less than 12 contact hours. That is still considered a reportable individual, but has a certain criteria and is submitted a certain way to the federal government. So I want you to be aware of that, especially if you're a new provider to adult ed. We've also listed the adult ed performance accountability measures for the year. This is based on our state fiscal year, not to get confused with the federal program year, but we do operate 2 years, so to speak, in the state of Alabama. That allows us to be accountable the entire year. We cannot take any time off. It's incumbent that we provide the best quality services at all times to everyone that's coming into any of our centers across the state. So we have federal goals that runs July the 1st to June 30th, and we also have state fiscal goals as well, which runs from October all the way to September 30th. This one here ends June 30th of 2018 because current providers' contracts will end June 30th of this year, and then begin again on July the 1st for entities that have been selected. But this gives you a picture of the current enrollment goal that we have for our state when it comes to overall enrollment, and then also the National Career Readiness Certificate, which is based off the work keys. We have a state goal for that. We also have a state goal for the high school equivalency completions, which is GED, and then we also count the high school diploma option program in that count as well, that we also offer through adult education. And then we have a measurable skill gain measure that we would like to see at least 50% of the people that come into our programs making an educational level completion, attaining a certification or something that would be considered a measurable skill gain or transition to post-secondary ed. We have the performance goals for July the 1st, 2017 up through June 30th of 2018 listed there for you. These are measures that were negotiated from the federal level. These are federal performance measures, and it's again July the 1st to June 30th of 2018. And those measures are for each individual educational functional level, including ESL. And then we also have an overall measurable skill gain, which for the federal portion is 42%. Obviously, for the state, we want 50. Thank you. All right, let's move down to the next one. Appendix D, Local Workforce Development Board, Roles and Responsibilities and Review of the Adult Ed and Family Literacy Act proposals. We thought we would add that in there for you so you could look at how the local boards will be reviewing the plans that you are submitting to us. We also have an Appendix E, each county in the state of Alabama and the need per county based on the American Community Survey, okay? We did not put commas in this. We just put direct numbers into each one of these. We expect the number of students to be served based on the annual state goals for each county. So you can see each county in the state, the need from the county, the expected number that we would like to see. You obviously can't exceed that, and we would encourage you to exceed that number. And in many cases, if you're a current provider, you may have exceeded that number. So please make sure you set your bar high, but we do have a goal established for each individual county. And then also at the top, you'll also see the counties, again, is just other counties to be served. So every county in the state, all 67 counties are listed there. Thank you. All right. This is the GEPA notice. This is, again, something that was new. It was just really given to us this month. I don't even think I could say last month. It was this month that it came down from the federal government. We were fortunate that we had not released our RFP, so we were able to integrate this into our RFP process. Some states were not able to do that, and we'll have to go back to their applicants to get this information. So we were able to work it into the RFP process. So you'll see this listed, and you can specifically address how you're going to ensure that this provision 427 of GEPA is specifically met. And you can also feel free, if you'd like, within the when we get into the application itself, within the considerations, you can also address in each consideration how you're meeting this need. That is acceptable from the federal government level, but it is not required. You can also just put it as a standalone document at the end, which we have provided to you in the application. So you have kind of options for that, and we give you examples of how that can be satisfied. Okay? So we have now, I think, completed the guidelines. We are now, before we go into the RFP application itself, I want to just, again, reiterate the letter of intent to apply. This is something that is not required, it's optional, but we would like you to complete this and get this to us from the standpoint of helping us make determinations from the standpoint of the amount of readers that we will need to read the applications. Okay, the request for proposal application itself, let's go into that. Okay. And you'll see that when you go in to enable editing, it will, if you happen to see anything that looks off-centered in your application, when you save it and actually select the ability to enable it for editing, then it will look perfect for you, okay? I promise. All right, let's scroll down. I think I've already covered the deadline, so don't need to recover that again. Again, this is where you'll start putting in information. So the competitive grant application process, which will begin fiscal year 2018, July the 1st of 2018. You'll put your organization, your address, city, state, zip, your DUNS number, your employee tax EID number, and also website information as well. Again, we have marked and we have put down the agencies that are eligible for services. Please select and mark all that applies to your organization that's in there. If necessary, you can also provide additional information below to clarify the applicant type that you are, okay? The applicant authorized representative information, so name, title, telephone, signatures. We need the program director that will be administrating the program, so it's the program administrator, or we call program director. Also, the fiscal agent, manager information needs to be listed there as well as email. Scroll down, please. And then we want state organization's mission here, so please put your organization's mission in this section here. And then we give you an opportunity under number 2, specify the county or counties to be served by highlighting the appropriate county. So this document, you can go in and highlight the counties that you will be applying for, okay? And then you will address those counties within the application itself, okay? Enter the number of persons in the target population from the American Community Survey Census the need that we provided. That will be a compilation of all the programs that, actually counties that you will be proposing to serve, or portions of counties that you will be proposing to serve, and then put this in that target population box that we provided for you. Select the funding sources for which your organization is applying for. Obviously, Federal Section 231, Adult Ed program, what we consider the core services, which I've covered in detail. Each of the eligible services under the Adult Education Program, Section 231, but please feel free to refer back to the guidelines, refer back to the actual law itself for more information on that. And then the Integrated English Literacy and Civics Education, Federal Section 243, which I specifically addressed, and we identified in bold the counties that must address that in their application. Again, did not exceed 20% of your overall allocation for institutionalized, because institutionalized is part of your 231. So you're not applying for separate money within 231. You're just telling us how you're actually utilizing 231 funds to serve the local institutions or correctional facilities, jails within your area. You also have the capacity chart there as well. Projected number of NRS, National Reporting System participants you're proposing to serve that you'll put in for each of the category of adult basic education, adult secondary, which is your core, and which is and also the integrated English literacy and civics education. Okay, enter the number of proposed students to be served. You put that in there as well. And then the cost per student. The cost per student, we have came up with a figure not to exceed $731 per person. Obviously, you can come in less than that. We are looking, obviously, at programs that are effective and efficient with their funding. We came up with an overall amount to help you create a projected budget. Again, you are creating a projected budget here. This is not a budget that you're guaranteed to receive. As explained earlier, that is something that we will negotiate with each entity. But you can utilize this to put together a projected budget to help us and the readers understanding your proposal and what you're proposing to do within your area. Fiscal information, if your organization is not part of the Alabama Community College System, please attach an audited financial statement covering the most recent 2-year period. Describe how funds will be spent consistent with Title II requirements, include activities that will be provided, and how funds will be allocated in order to implement the proposed activities. Complete the budget form, document C. I want everyone to do that, and then provide a detailed narrative addressing each of the applicable line items on the fiscal worksheet. Applicant risk assessment, complete the risk assessment, document F, please. That will help us in determining and meeting the requirement of WIOA and the requirement of the U.S. Department of Education, but it'll help us in determining the entity that's applying for funds from the standpoint of a risk assessment and the standpoint of meeting performance or being able to actually properly utilize the funds in meeting the requirements under the grant and doing all the applicable services and requirements of the grant itself. Again, this application is based on the 13 considerations, so let's dive into it. The first consideration is the degree to which the eligible provider would be responsive to A, regional needs as identified in the local plan under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, Section 108, and serving individuals in the community who were identified in such plan as most in need of adult ed and literacy activities, including individuals who have low levels of literacy skills or are English language learners. you have considerations 1.1 through 1.5 to address. I'm not going to read each one of those questions, but you will need to fully address each of those sections, 1.1 through 1.5. Consideration 2, the ability of the eligible provider to serve eligible individuals with disabilities, including eligible individuals with learning disabilities as well. This is section 2.1, questions 2.1 through 2.3, specific questions addressed to that. Yeah. As a reminder, I want to remind everyone that obviously this is an application for institutionalized population as well. So as you are addressing what you're doing with adult education, if you're a correctional facility like Ingram State, you will address each and every one of these considerations for your proposal. If you are a local jail providing services to a local jail or halfway house, you will, in these questions and considerations, address from an institutional perspective, correctional facility perspective, how you're addressing that as well, okay? So it'll be part of your overall plan of what you're doing holistically for adult education and specifically with the local jail or halfway house. And if you're an Ingram State correctional facility that is writing the grant or a similar institution like that, you will actually do every one of the questions specifically to how you're going to operate the correctional facility program within your state correctional institution. Okay? All right, so consideration 3, this is the past effectiveness section of the eligible provider in improving the literacy of eligible individuals to meet state-adjusted levels of performance for the primary indicators of performance described in WIA Section 116, especially with respect to eligible individuals who have low levels of literacy. That's 3.1 through 3.3. Please review each and every one of those and make sure that you're aware of what the question's asking and you're addressing each of those individual points under that consideration. Consideration 4, the extent to which the eligible provider demonstrates alignment between proposed activities and services and the strategy and goals of the local plan under WIA Section 108, as well as the activities and services of the one-stop partners, 4.1 through 4.3. Again, make sure you read each and every one of these and address it specifically. Consideration 5, whether the eligible provider's program is of sufficient intensity and quality and based on the most rigorous research available so that participants achieve substantial learning gains and uses instructional practices that include the essential components of reading instruction. Okay, describe 5.1, you're going to describe the program's enrollment management strategies. You're going to go into 5.2 and then 5.3. Consideration 6, whether the activities delivered by the eligible provider, including reading, writing, speaking, mathematics, and English language acquisition, or as I have said earlier, English language learner or English as a second language instruction, are based on the best practices derived from the most rigorous research available and are appropriate, including scientifically valid research and effective educational practice. Please cite sources. 6.1 through 6.3 addresses that consideration. Please address it in detail. Consideration 7, whether the eligible provider's activities effectively use technology, services, and delivery systems, including distance education, in a manner sufficient to increase the amount and quality of learning, and how such technology, services, and systems lead to improved performance. 7.1 to 7.3. Okay. Remember, we are working with a diverse population of students who may need to access our services at a distance. So this is an important consideration, as well as all the considerations are very important. Consideration 8, whether the eligible provider's activities provide learning and context, including through integrated education and training, so that an individual acquires the skills needed to transition to and complete post-secondary education and training programs if required or needed, and obtain and advance in employment leading to economic self-sufficiency and to exercise the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. Critical consideration here, 8.1 to 8.3, addresses that. Consideration 9, whether the eligible provider's activities are delivered by well-trained instructors, counselors, and administrators who meet any minimum qualifications established by the state where applicable, and who have access to high-quality professional development, including through electronic means that we had mentioned this morning. All of the various professional development opportunities, both at a state level, national level, and local level. 9.1 addresses this. You also have document B to include all planned positions that you're looking at filling, and then 9.2, which will be described how the program will provide high quality professional development, ensure that instructors, staff are knowledgeable, yada, 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 of current research and best practices in adult ed. Consideration 10. We're almost there. We've got 3 more to go. And my voice is holding up. So I was afraid that it would not today, but it has held up. Consideration 10. Whether the eligible provider's activities coordinate with other available education, training, and social service resources in the community, such as by establishing strong links with elementary schools, for example, secondary schools, post-secondary education institutions of higher education, local workforce boards, investment boards, one-stop centers, job training programs, and social service agencies, business, industry, labor organizations, community-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, and intermediaries for development of career pathways. Okay, this would be any partner that can design and implement and do career pathways, integrated education and training. It's incumbent that we work with them very closely. 10.1, 10.2 addresses the need of consideration 10. Consideration 11, whether the eligible provider's activities offer flexible schedules in coordination with federal, state, and local support services such as child care if needed, transportation, mental health services, career planning, etc., that are necessary to enable individuals, including individuals with disabilities or other special needs, to attend and complete programs. So consideration 11 is very important. 11.1 to 11.3 addresses that. Consideration 12, whether the eligible provider maintains a high-quality information management system that has the capacity to report measurable participant outcomes consistent with Section 116 and to monitor program performance. This is where you're going to describe organizations' data management practices. This will be 12.1. You also do 12.2 with personnel, and then 12.3, how will the program utilize data to assess and improve program performance and evaluating the measurable skill gains that we discussed earlier, which is called MSGs. Consideration 13, whether the local areas in which the eligible provider is located have a demonstrated need for additional English language acquisition programs and civics education programs. What is the English language learner population in the local area? 13.1. There's other questions associated with 13.1. Then you have 13.2, 13.3 under consideration 13. That gives us the 13 considerations. That's part of the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act under the Adult Ed Family Literacy Act that is guided by the U.S. Department of Education that we have to follow. So there you have it, folks. You also have Section 243 that for the ones that are bolded that I discussed earlier and highlighted for you and called specifically out, you will not also need to complete the questions under this section as well, section 243. If we scroll down, we have document A, which I discussed earlier, which is referred in consideration, which you'll be putting in your proposed class schedule, which has location, student capacity, days a week, time, management, managed enrollment, open enrollment, how you've got the program designed, schedule, breaks, holidays, so forth. We've created a encompassing document that you can utilize to help guide what we're going to be reviewing from your proposal. You'll also be required to put information, if you are selected to be a provider, into the Alabama Adult Education System of Accountability and Performance, which we affectionately call ASAP. So all this information will also be specifically inputted into ASAP in much more detail than you have here. This is to be utilized for giving us enough information for the readers to actually understand what you're proposing to do, so they can adequately score your proposal and ensure that they're understanding what it is you're going to be doing for adult education and family literacy under the Act itself. Okay, document B is a proposed personnel report. Document C is your budget form. Again, this is a summary of budget that will help the reviewers, help us get an idea of your budget. You will have a more detailed budget that will be entered into the ASAP system that has more maybe requirements than what we're asking here. This is very similar here, but there'll be some more detailed stuff in ASAP if you're actually selected to provide services under WIA AFLA, so which will begin July the 1st. Document D is your performance chart. I was talking from the standpoint of current providers can utilize this to put in your performance information. Please be aware, we'll probably make an update to this, but this form here you can utilize, but it's the time period July the 1st through June 30th, okay, for each of the years listed. Please don't get confused with the state year, which is October 1st to September 30th. What we'll be asking you to do for this performance chart will be July the 1st through June 30th for the years that we asked for. Okay, for entities that do not have not provided adult education literacy services through the Alabama Community College System Adult Education Division before through the AFLA grant, then you can submit your own chart on how you, through the services you do provide, how you can demonstrate effectiveness. Okay. Document E, again, I don't want to hash on this, but this is the document for the gap of provision. Okay. So you can provide us a narrative which just gives a clear and succinct description of how your program will ensure equal access to and participation in your federally assisted programs for students, teachers, and other program beneficiaries with special needs. The gap of provision allows applicants discretion in developing the required description. However, the statute highlights 6 types of barriers that can impede equitable access or participation, which is gender, race, national origin, color, disability, or age. Based on local circumstances, you should determine the barriers that are applicable to your program and address the application of steps that you'll be taken to overcome these barriers. While not required, applicants may also choose to address the issues associated with this provision in connection with the related topics in the application. So that addresses what I said earlier, where you can integrate this also into your discussion of each of the considerations. Okay. Again, this is new. We were required to work in, and we have worked that into the application. I know it sounds like I'm reading a lot of stuff to you, and the answer is yes, I am reading to you, because that is part of the federal requirement that we be very specific to the entities applying for funds, that they understand specifically what is in the law and what is required under the U.S. Department of Education and AFLA, and that the considerations are specifically addressed. Document F is the pre-award risk assessment that we have already discussed in the guidelines, which is the document you will use here. Even though the guidelines will give you a document, that guidelines is for you to look at. This is a document for you to complete. And again, this is something that is required of all states who are releasing AFLA funds. It's a requirement by the federal government. Okay, we are now finished with covering all of the guidelines, general instructions, and the application itself. We will now go to some questions that have been asked. So Danielle is pulling up the questions now. And the first question is from DC, Leo Dicia, which we affectionately call DC. Thank you for your question, DC. This is something that Kev Williamson has also asked earlier in the week, and this session will be recorded and available for review later. So we have tried to record this, and I hope it is recording, and it says it's recording. So we will put that out there. All right. Barbara Steger asks, what is the DUNS number? This is the number that you will get from the college. Any entity who receives federal funds has to have a DUNS number. You will get that number from your college system. That is a number you're already utilizing for your adult ed program that you're operating right now. Derica is asking a question. Does the expected number of students to be served on Appendix C include the number we would propose to serve in applying for the IELCE funds, or is that for the number that we propose to serve for the ABE-ASC funds only? Okay, that is the population in your area that is in need of adult ed services that are without a high school diploma or GED. That does not encompass your English as a second language population or English language learner population. So for your IELCE, you be utilizing information that you have locally from people that you have served in the past or that you know within the area that needs to be served from the standpoint of English as a second language, and then you will build your budget on that. We do not have the detailed information about ESL necessarily that what we could put out, but you can get information from county profiles, from the census information that will give you an indication of ESL in each area. But what I would do is look at building that from the history of the people that you have served in the past from ESL, or if you're an entity that has a history of serving populations of students, which would be considered in the English as a second language or English language learner population, then you can propose what you think that population would be for your area within the counties that we listed. Derica also asked the question, is the amount that we request placed on the application the total budget amount proposed for all 3 years? Okay. No, what you're going to be proposing is when you write the application itself and addressing the considerations, we want you to address all 3 years that you're proposing to serve. So you're going to be talking about what you're doing first year, second year, and third year throughout the application process. For the funding side of it, what we're going to be looking at is just what you're proposing for the current year. So for the first year, and then again, that will be something that we'll utilize to give an idea of the budget you're requesting for that first year, but we'll also be looking at from the standpoint of negotiating with you or possible negotiation on that time frame. And again, the initial grant award covers the following period, which is on the front of the application itself, which says July the 1st, 2018 through September 30th of 2019. So if you go back to the actual application itself, on the very first page, we have highlighted for everyone who is applying that the initial grant award covers the following period: July the 1st, 2018 to September 30th, 2019. Good question, Derica. Thank you. All right, other questions? Ackering Spears, is there a certain number of pages we're limited to? This could become huge. Well, AJ, obviously we talked about that and looked at limiting pages, but we want you to adequately address each of the considerations. Obviously, we could put a limit or put an amount in there for a number of words that we're looking for, but past experiences has shown us that people start counting words and counting pages. What we want to do is we want you to succinctly tell us and tell the readers that will be reading your application what you're proposing to do within your area. Now, we do not want a book to read, but we also want to give you the ability to adequately address what you need to do. Now, for many of you, you can adequately address that within probably a limited amount of pages. Please be cognizant of readers that will be reading your application. No one wants the same amount of pages that's in the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, which is thousands of pages. So please use good, prudent judgment, which we ask you to do as an adult ed provider. Make sure things are reasonable and it would pass the prudent person test. So please, as you're writing this proposal, make sure you're addressing the questions, but you're also addressing it in a way that's making it clear to the reader without making it cumbersome and without making it where it's a huge amount of pages, as Akarim says here. So, all right, because consider yourself a reader. If you were reading this, how would you like it to read for you as a reader? So take that in consideration when you're writing it for the readers that will be reading and scoring these proposals for adult education. Okay, what is the time period to be covered in document C, budget form in the application? Okay.
That's the question that we just answered. It should be October.
It's July the 1st, 2018 to September 30th of 2019. I was going to let Kim answer that, and she did. Thank you, Kim, for that. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge staff. Let me tell you, staff has put in an exorbitant amount of work and effort in ensuring that this RFP is as comprehensive as it possibly can be and as clear as it can be, and also user-friendly as it can be. So I want to thank each and every staff here at the system office involved in that. We couldn't have done it without our whole team here. We have a wonderful team, and they're doing an excellent job, and I want to thank them for their hard work and efforts in putting this together. And I want to thank Danielle for navigating us through this, because she and I didn't practice this. This is live, and we've done it first time, so you know, we didn't do any practicing beforehand. So hopefully it's went smooth and everyone has a clear understanding of what we're asking for, and you understand the guidelines in the application itself. Yvette Pierce. Yvette, good morning. You have a question from AIDB. EH Gentry receives referrals for students who are deaf-blind or deaf-blind students throughout the state of Alabama. How they estimate expected number of students to be served there. Well, you know, Yvette, you have a history of serving that student population with us. You've been an entity that is currently being funded, that has been funded in the past. So I think you can give us a good estimate of what you feel like that population will be, that you'll be serving. And again, you serve a unique population, but all the considerations will actually be required of you. So when you're filling out the application, you do it like anyone else, even though your population is different, which will also be different, just like the population served through Ingram State as well. So good question, Yvette. Thank you. And Erica said, thank you, Erica, good question. Yvette says, since we serve students in all counties, we are to highlight all counties. Yvette, you can, obviously, you are a unique situation here, but feel free to highlight all counties because you will have a population that comes from all counties, even though it will be a smaller, very specific population that you'll be serving. But in that section of the application, please feel free to highlight all counties. Thank you. Okay, Jonathan has asked, in regards to your response to Kareem's questions, are bulleted responses to all the considerations acceptable? Well, you know, we will leave it up to you on how you are addressing the application. I'm not going to get into giving you advice on how you set up the proposal. You know, our requirement is to put a request for funding proposal together and put it out and to make it accessible to all eligible applicants and to ensure that everybody understands what we're asking for. But it is not our responsibility to get into the specifics of how you set that up. You determine the best way that you want to set that up and to answer each of the required questions, but you must address each of the required considerations. So hopefully that answers your question, John. Derica says, thank you again. Thank you. We appreciate that, Derica. Thank you very much for acknowledging us here. Barbara says, can someone reiterate the dates again for document C?
It's July 1, 2018 through September 30th, 2019.
Okay. All right. Yep. And thank you, Jonathan. Jonathan answered Barbara's question online as well. All right. Philip, are city, county jails eligible for service under institutionalized budget? Yes, Philip, they are. Institutionalized is all-encompassing, which is encompassing correctional facilities and all the facilities that I've actually spelled out in the law itself. And then it also, institutionalized means any population of students that may not necessarily be in a correctional facility, but in an institutionalized population as well. So, Joy says, thank you. Jonathan says, got it. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. Barbara, thanks. I think that's it. Now I'm going to open it up for phone questions. If you have any phone questions at all, please take your phone off mute. Feel free to ask the question.
Mr. Walters?
Yes.
My question is this. I have two counties in which I am only responsible for 1/5 of the county. When I look at the total numbers for that county, do I divide that by 5 and whatever, how do I calculate that?
Yeah, let me address that in a very general fashion because I can't get into specifics because it would tell you how to write the grant. But generally, you have the counties in our state and the population of need within each of those counties. And I want to encourage any entity that is eligible to apply to propose services within that county of whether you can do the entire county. Please put the, if you propose to do the entire county, do that. So I don't want anyone to feel limited to a certain amount of how they should do this. Obviously, this is a new request for funding proposal. We are now under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. We are no longer under the Workforce Investment Act of 1998. So WIOA is, to quote Cheryl Keenan, who is the director of adult ed on national level, this is a new starting point. This is a new ground, if you will. So I don't want to get in any form or fashion trying to tell anyone to limit what they're proposing to do. So if you feel like you can actually serve an entire county or you can only serve portions of a county, then you put that in your proposal. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Yvette says institutionalized is AIDB. AIDB is an institutionalized population, and Yvette you are writing on behalf of AIDB, and you're actually going to be writing from the standpoint of the entire proposal in all considerations. Okay? Any other questions? Well, this has been great, and I don't know if we could have planned it any better. We had 9:30 to 11:30, and we're actually getting ready to wrap up. I think Kim has a comment, or yes?
Just as a reminder, we are going to make 1 or 2 changes to the application. It will not, none of the questions will actually change. But if you have already downloaded the document, please re-download it at least tomorrow. Give us till tomorrow morning before you download it again. But you can go ahead and start answering your questions. The questions will not change.
Yeah, and tomorrow morning is Saturday, so by Monday we'll have it, and probably have it by this afternoon. We just noticed as we went through this, there's a couple things that we needed to change. It does not affect really anything that you all do. It's just some things that we want to clean up on our end. You probably didn't even notice those things. But we will change that, put it back out. But again, it does not affect any of the application or any of the guidelines or anything that I really covered today. So, all right. Well, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This is the first time that I think in the state of Alabama that we had done this from a webinar standpoint. I hope it went well for you. I think it went well for us. This is a way to keep you in your office and not require you to travel into Montgomery for us to cover this in a 2-hour session face-to-face. And I think we were able to cover it in the way through technology that was probably as good or probably better than if we had done it face-to-face. So again, Danielle has recorded all this. We will try to get that posted as quickly as possible by Monday, and then we'll also go ahead and put a frequently asked question document out there with the questions that you all asked. Plus, I've put together some questions that if I was in your all's shoes, things that I would ask as well. So just general type things. And so we'll have those ready to go next week as well. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend. And if there's no other questions, we stand adjourned.
Mr. Walton.
Yes, one more question. Yes.
This is Kay. I'm sorry. Dr. Adams submitted a written question. Oh, one more.
Okay. Was it on the comment section, or he submitted it?
It came in as a chat on the.
Okay. Well, let's look at it. Sorry about
there.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken. We will be allowed to have 3 directors, or will we need to change the titles or 2 of the directors? Ken, I want you to thoroughly read the directions and the guidelines that we have in the guidelines themselves. Make sure you read that, and make sure that you read what is in the personnel document that we have as well, and make your decision based on that. So I'm not going to address what you need to do in that case, but I think you need to just fully read all the guidelines, and I think it will hopefully provide explanation and guidance to you on what you need to do. Okay? Any other questions? Dana says thank you. Okay, thank you, Dana. All right, well, great. Thank you all very much. Again, we released it on Friday. We did the webinar today. We give you all really, I think, sufficient time. We're giving you more time than a lot of states are giving their programs. But please do not delay. Get into this immediately and begin the process. And believe me, if you get it to us earlier, that will not hurt our feelings. We will accept those early applications. So please feel free to do that. So thank you. And again, I want to thank each and every one of you that called in. And I want to thank staff. And again, have a great weekend, and be safe and take care. Thank you.